The glass walls of the penthouse offered a panoramic view of New York City. From the 45th floor, the taxicabs down on the avenue looked like yellow pixels moving through a gray circuit board. Mark swirled the amber liquid in his crystal glass. The ice clinked softly, a lonely sound in the expansive, silent room. At 35, Mark was the creative director of one of the biggest agencies in the city. He had the title, the view, and the salary. Yet, for the last 3 hours, he had been staring at a blank screen on his tablet. The word connection blinked at him. That was the campaign theme. Connection. He sighed and loosened his silk tie. It felt like a noose. How could he sell the idea of human connection when the only thing he had touched all day was a touchscreen? The air conditioning hummed, filtering out the noise of the city, filtering out the life, leaving him in a sterilized bubble of cool, stale air. Frustrated, Mark walked over to a stack of moving boxes in the corner that he still had not unpacked since moving in 6 months ago. He needed a distraction. He pulled the tape off the top box. Inside, amidst old receipts and tax forms, his fingers brushed against something cold and heavy. He pulled it out. It was an old brass compass. The glass face was cracked. The needle no longer pointed north. It was stuck, frozen in time. The metal was tarnished, smelling faintly of oxidation and dust. As Mark ran his thumb over the rough, engraved edges, the hum of the air conditioner seemed to fade away. The gray light of New York dissolved into a blinding golden yellow. Suddenly, the smell of sterile air was replaced by the thick, sweet scent of pine sap and drying leaves. The silence was shattered by the deafening rhythmic chorus of cicadas. Mark was no longer 35. He was 10. And he was not a director. He was a captain. He stood on the uneven floorboards of a treehouse wedged firmly in the arms of a giant oak tree. To any adult, it was a hazard made of scrap wood and rusty nails. But to Mark, this was the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. Sunlight filtered through the canopy of green leaves, creating dancing patterns on his dirty sneakers. His hands were not holding a crystal glass. They were gripping the rough bark of the oak tree, his knuckles scraped and covered in dirt. He could feel the texture of the wood, warm from the afternoon Sunday. He could feel the vibration of the wind shaking the branches, making the whole fortress sway gently. It was terrifying and exhilarating. Below him, the backyard was not a lawn. It was an alien planet waiting to be explored. He shouted commands to his imaginary crew, his voice cracking with excitement. There were no emails to answer. There were no deadlines. There was only the mission to imagine. In that treehouse, connection wasn't about signal bars or Wi-Fi speeds. Connection was the feeling of sap on your fingers. It was the scratch of wood against your skin. It was the feeling of being small in the arms of a giant tree, yet feeling like the king of the world. The memory was so vivid that Mark could almost feel the summer heat on the back of his neck. He blinked, and the gray skyline of New York returned. He was back in the penthouse, but the feeling remained. His hand was still clutching the old compass tightly. He looked at the tablet on the table. The cursor was still blinking next to the word connection. It looked sterile, fake. Mark set his drink down. He reached into the box and found something else. A simple, yellow wooden pencil. He didn't pick up the tablet. Instead, he grabbed a piece of paper from a discarded envelope. He didn't tap a screen. He pressed the graphite tip against the paper. Scritch, scratch. The sound was raw, friction, texture. He began to sketch, not a sleek, futuristic device, but a tree. A gnarled, ancient oak tree with a crooked wooden house nestled in its branches. He realized that true connection does not come from the cloud. It comes from the ground. It comes from the things we can touch. The things that have scars. The things that make us feel alive. Mark smiled for the first time that day. The campaign had finally begun.